In the bustling heart of the city, where glass towers kissed the clouds and the air shimmered with ambition, there stood a hotel unlike any other. Its marble floors gleamed, echoing the footsteps of travelers from every corner of the world. Here, the reception desk was a stage for greetings and goodbyes, for first impressions and lasting memories. And on one unforgettable morning, it became the setting for a story that would ripple through the hearts of everyone who heard it. The day began like any other. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, painting golden patterns across the polished floor. At the reception desk, the staff moved with the practiced grace of those who'd seen it all: businessmen in tailored suits, tourists with wide eyes, families with laughter trailing behind them. Names were checked, keys handed out, smiles exchanged. Efficiency reigned, and the world spun smoothly on its axis. Then, a man entered whose presence seemed to quiet the very air. He wore a flowing white robe, pristine and regal, and a headscarf secured with a black cord. His bearing was dignified, his expression serene and unreadable. He moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who did not worry about time. Behind him, two assistants trailed discreetly, their eyes attentive and alert. He stepped up to the reception desk. The receptionist, a young woman named Claire, straightened her blazer and greeted him with a practiced smile. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to the Grand Athenaeum Hotel. How may I assist you?" The man responded, but his words were low and unfamiliar. Arabic, Claire realized, her smile faltering slightly. She tried again, slower and a little louder, hoping he might understand. "Do you have a reservation, sir? Your name, please?" He replied once more, gesturing politely, his tone never rising, his dignity undiminished. Claire glanced at his assistants, but they remained silent, stoic, almost invisible. The line behind him began to grow. Guests shifted impatiently. A businessman coughed. Someone checked their watch. Claire's colleague, James, came over to help. He tried English, then French, then a little Spanish, each time met with the same gentle refusal. The hotel's translation app was fumbled for, but the internet lagged, and the words that appeared made little sense. Murmurs rippled through the lobby. Some guests frowned, others whispered. The man remained calm, his hands folded in front of him, his eyes observing everything with quiet intelligence. The assistants murmured to one another in Arabic, but offered no help. Frustration began to simmer beneath the surface. The staff prided themselves on professionalism, on handling any situation with poise. Yet here they stood, utterly lost, unable to bridge the smallest gap, a few words, a name, a request. One of the managers arrived, his face tight with anxiety. He tried every language he knew, every gesture of hospitality, but nothing seemed to connect. The billionaire Sheikh's patience never faltered, but an invisible wall seemed to grow between him and the reception desk, made not of language, but of understanding. As the tension built, a quiet presence moved through the lobby, almost unnoticed. It was Hannah, the cleaner, her uniform neat but unremarkable. She'd worked at the hotel for years, gliding through its halls like a gentle breeze, her mop and bucket her constant companions. Guests rarely looked at her, but she saw everything: the joy, the stress, the small kindnesses, and the silent struggles. Hannah paused nearby, watching the scene unfold. She saw the frustration in Claire's eyes, the confusion on the Sheikh's face, the growing impatience in the lobby. She set her mop aside and stepped closer, her gaze soft and curious. Then, without a word, she slipped away, returning moments later with a tray. On it sat a delicate teapot, steam curling from its spout, and two small cups. She approached the sheikh and his assistants, her movements gentle and unhurried. With a respectful nod, she poured tea into a cup and offered it to the sheikh. Her hands did not tremble. Her eyes met his with warmth and welcome. The sheikh's face changed. He smiled, a small, genuine smile that seemed to light up the space between them. He accepted the tea with a grateful nod, murmuring words of thanks in Arabic. Hannah replied with a few quiet words of her own, her accent soft but clear. A ripple ran through the crowd. The assistant's eyes widened in surprise, and one of them broke into a smile. Hannah spoke to them in Arabic, her voice gentle and melodic. She asked if they were tired from their journey, if they would like to sit, if they needed anything else. The Sheikh's expression softened. He gestured to Hana, speaking quietly. She listened with respect, nodding as he spoke. Then she turned to the reception staff, translating his words into English. "He is Sheikh Abdullah Al-Mansour," she said, her voice steady. "He has come for the international conference. He apologizes for the trouble. He says he would like to check in, and he thanks you for your hospitality." The room seemed to exhale, the tension melting away. The manager blinked, astonished. The receptionist's eyes filled with relief and gratitude. Hana continued to translate, guiding both sides gently. Within moments, the Sheikh's reservation was found, his suite prepared, his needs attended to. The assistants relaxed. The murmurs in the lobby faded to quiet admiration. As the Sheikh was led to his suite, he paused beside Hana. He placed a hand over his heart and bowed his head in gratitude. She smiled, her eyes shining. Later, as the story spread through the hotel, people spoke of the billionaire Sheikh and the cleaner who offered him tea. They spoke of language and understanding, of dignity and humility, of how a simple act of kindness had bridged a gap that technology and protocol could not. In the staff break room, someone asked Hana how she knew Arabic. She shrugged, a shy smile on her lips. "I learned when I was young. My father worked in the Middle East. I lived there for many years." They marveled at her humility, at the way she never boasted or sought attention. She simply did what was needed, with grace and quiet strength.
But for Hana, it was never about recognition. It was about seeing people, not just their status or their wealth, but their humanity. She believed that every person who walked through the hotel's doors carried a story, a longing to be understood, a hope for kindness.
In the days that followed, the Sheikh made a point of greeting Hana whenever he saw her. He would ask after her family, share a few words in Arabic, and thank her for her help. He sent a letter to the hotel's management, praising her not just for her language skills, but for her empathy and respect. The hotel staff began to look at Hana differently. They noticed the way she listened to guests, the way she offered a smile to those who seemed lost, the way she moved quietly through the halls, making everyone feel seen. They began to slow down, to listen more closely, to ask questions instead of making assumptions. They realized that true hospitality was not just about polished floors and perfect service, but about meeting people where they were, with open hearts and open minds. The story of the Sheikh and the cleaner became legend in the hotel, a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come from the most unexpected places. That a cup of tea, offered with sincerity, could open doors that seemed forever closed. Guests who heard the story found themselves looking at the staff with new eyes. They noticed the cleaners, the porters, the people who worked quietly in the background. They offered words of thanks, smiles of recognition, small gestures of appreciation. And for Hana, life continued much as it had before. She still swept the floors and tidied the rooms, her movements gentle and sure. But she did so with a quiet pride, knowing that she had made a difference, not with grand gestures or loud words, but with the simple, profound act of seeing another person and offering them the warmth of human connection. One evening, as the city lights twinkled outside and the hotel hummed with life, the Sheikh called for Hana. She arrived at his suite, unsure what to expect. He greeted her warmly and gestured for her to sit. On the table before them was a pot of tea, fragrant and steaming. He poured her a cup, the roles now reversed. "In my country," he said, his English accented but clear, "we say that sharing tea is sharing friendship. You honored me with yours. I would like to honor you with mine." They drank in silence for a moment, the world outside fading away. Then the Sheikh spoke, his voice soft. "Many people see only what is on the surface, wealth, titles, positions. But you saw my need, not for luxury but for understanding. You reminded me that kindness is the greatest wealth of all." Hana smiled, her eyes bright. "We are all travelers," she said. "Sometimes we just need someone to welcome us home." The Sheikh nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "You have given me more than good service. You have given me peace." In the days that followed, the Sheikh's gratitude extended far beyond words. He made a generous donation to the hotel's staff fund, ensuring that those who worked behind the scenes would be recognized and rewarded. He requested that Hana be promoted, her skills and compassion acknowledged. But for Hana, the greatest reward was the knowledge that she had touched a life, that her small act of kindness had rippled outward, changing not just one man's experience but the culture of the entire hotel. Word of the story spread beyond the hotel, carried by guests who'd witnessed the moment, by staff who'd felt its impact, by the Sheikh himself, who spoke of Hana's kindness at the conference he'd come to attend. Soon, other hotels in the city began to ask about her, about the training she'd received, about the culture of hospitality that could produce such a remarkable act. And everywhere, people began to remember that true service was not just about efficiency, but about empathy. But for Hana, none of this changed who she was. She continued to move quietly through the hotel, her heart open, her eyes attentive. She offered tea to those who looked tired, a smile to those who seemed lost, a kind word to those who needed encouragement. In her own quiet way, she became the soul of the hotel, a living reminder that kindness could change lives, that understanding could bridge any gap, that the smallest gestures often carried the greatest meaning. In the years that followed, as the hotel grew and changed, the story of the Sheikh and the cleaner remained, a beacon for all who passed through its doors. New staff were told the tale on their first day, reminded that every guest was more than just a reservation number, that every person had a story worth hearing. And sometimes, when the lobby was quiet and the city lights shimmered outside, Hana would sit for a moment with a cup of tea, remembering the day she'd seen a man not as a billionaire or a stranger, but as a fellow traveler in need of kindness. She would smile, knowing that in a world that often moved too fast, a simple cup of tea could still change everything. In the end, it was not the wealth or the status or the language that mattered, but the willingness to reach out, to offer warmth and understanding, to see the humanity in every face. The heart of hospitality, Hana knew, was not in the grandeur of the surroundings, but in the simple, everyday acts of kindness that made strangers feel like friends and travelers feel like they had found a home. And so, the story lived on, whispered in the halls, carried in the hearts of those who heard it, a gentle reminder that, in the end, it is kindness that leaves the deepest mark, and compassion that binds us all together.